My wife told me she needed 7 days without me to decide if I was still worth keeping. I agreed. That was my first mistake. Or maybe hers. She said it casually. Not angry, not emotional, just matter of fact. Like she was canceling a subscription she wasn't sure she needed anymore. We were sitting in the kitchen, same place where we used to have actual conversations, back when words didn't sound like performance reviews. She had a mug in her hands, chamomile tea, of course, because apparently when you're about to emotionally bench your husband, you go herbal. I remember staring at her, waiting for her to crack, smile, roll her eyes, say something like, "Relax, I'm kidding." She didn't. Instead, she took a slow sip and looked at me like I was a question she hadn't decided how to answer yet. "I'm serious," she said. There was no anger in her voice. That was the weird part. I could deal with anger. Anger is honest. Anger means something still matters. This was evaluation. 7 days? I asked. What am I? A free trial? She didn't even blink. "I need space," she said. "No calls, no messages, no pressure. I need to understand what I feel and whether this relationship is still right for me, still right for her." I leaned back in my chair and let out a quiet laugh. "So let me get this straight," I said. "You want me to disappear for a week so you can decide if I'm worth keeping?" "That's not what I said." "That's exactly what you said. You just used nicer words." She exhaled, like I was being mildly difficult during a business meeting. "I don't want to argue," she said calmly. "I just need clarity." That word again. People love that word when they're about to do something selfish and want it to sound enlightened. We'd been together for years, long enough to build routines, inside jokes, shared habits that quietly glue two lives together. From the outside, we looked solid. No dramatic fights, no broken dishes, no neighbors calling the police. We were the couple people pointed at and said, "See, that's how it's supposed to be." Turns out we were just quiet about the cracks, because if you zoomed in a little, things had been off. She had changed, slowly, subtly. Less warmth, less laughter, more distance. Conversations turned into briefings. Jokes didn't land anymore, and every now and then, she'd say something that stuck with me longer than it should have. "I'm not sure you're the same person I fell in love with. Maybe we got too comfortable. I need more from life." At the time, I thought it was just one of those phases. People get restless. People overthink. People binge-watch self-improvement videos and suddenly want to find themselves. It happens. But now, sitting there, listening to her talk about a 7-day evaluation period for our marriage, yeah, this wasn't a phase. This was a plan. "You already decided this before today, didn't you?" I asked. She hesitated for half a second. That was enough. "I've been thinking about it," she said. "Of course you have. You don't wake up one morning and casually request emotional exile like it's a spa treatment." "You're asking me to leave," I said. "I'm asking you to give me space." "There's a difference?" "Yes." "Enlighten me." She met my eyes. "If you can't respect this, then it tells me everything I need to know." And there it was. The trap, neatly wrapped in therapy language. Disagree, you're controlling. Stay, you're suffocating. Ask questions, you're insecure. But agree? Agree, and suddenly you're the mature one. The understanding husband. The guy who calmly steps aside while his marriage goes on a coffee break. I looked at her. Really looked this time. Trying to find something familiar? Something real? A flicker of doubt? A hint of emotion? Anything? Nothing. Just calm. Too calm. That calm started bothering me more than anything she actually said. Because people don't act like that when they're unsure. They act like that when they've already decided. 7 days, I repeated. Yes. No contact. Yes. And after that, you come back and give me a verdict? She didn't like that word. Her jaw tightened just a little. "I'll know what I want," she said. "Right. Because this whole thing was about what she wants. I nodded slowly. All right, I said. And just like that, I stepped into it. Not because I agreed with it, not because I thought it was fair, but because I wasn't going to stand there and beg for a place in my own life. Because something in me refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me panic. And maybe, because a small part of me still thought this was fixable. She gave a small nod, almost relieved. Thank you for understanding. Understanding. Yeah, that's definitely what was happening. I stood up and walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, and for a second, I just stood there, staring. Funny how quickly a place stops feeling like yours. Same walls, same furniture, same smell. But suddenly, you're just temporary, like a guest who overstayed. I grabbed a bag and started throwing things in. No folding, no care. Shirts, jeans, whatever was closest. She appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed, watching, observing, like I was already part of the process. Take what you need, she said. Oh, I will. Should I leave the coffee machine too? I asked without looking at her. Might help you reach clarity faster. No reaction. That calm was getting under my skin. Let's not do this, she said. I zipped the bag and turned to her. Do what? I asked. React like a normal person? She exhaled, slightly annoyed now. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I stepped closer. No, I said quietly. You're making it exactly as hard as it needs to be. That one landed. Just a crack. But I saw it. Good. At least something was still real. I walked past her, bag in hand, and stopped at the door. 7 days, I said. Yes. And I'm supposed to just wait. She held my gaze. If what we have is real, it'll survive. There it is. The inspirational quote version of a marriage. I nodded. Yeah, I said. We'll see about that. And then I left. The door closed behind me with a soft click. No shouting, no drama. Just silence. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. 7 days. No contact, no explanation that actually made sense. I let out a slow breath. This isn't a test, I muttered. And then the thought hit me. Clear, sharp, uncomfortable. Why 7 days? Not 6, not 10, exactly 7. That wasn't emotional, that was scheduled. And suddenly, this whole thing didn't feel like a decision. It felt like a setup. I didn't go far, not out of strategy, not because I had some master plan, because I had nowhere else I actually wanted to be. So I ended up at a cheap rental about 20 minutes away, the kind of place that smells like someone else's bad decisions and lemon cleaner trying to hide it. I dropped the bag on the floor, sat on the edge of the bed, and just stayed there for a while. Silence hits different when it's not your choice. No TV, no music, no background noise. Just your thoughts, suddenly very interested in ruining your evening. I pulled out my phone, stared at her name, thought about texting something casual. Hey, this is weird. Or maybe something a little sharper. So, what exactly am I being graded on here? Instead, I locked the screen and tossed the phone on the bed. She made the rules. Fine. Let's see how she likes them when I actually follow them. The first day passed slowly, like time itself decided to take a smoke break every 10 minutes. I tried to distract myself. Went out, grabbed food, walked around like I was doing something productive. Didn't help, because every thought kept circling back to the same thing. That conversation, her tone, that calm, too calm. By the evening, the questions started getting louder. Why 7 days? Why no contact at all? Why did she look prepared? Not emotional? Not confused? Not even conflicted? Prepared? Like she had already rehearsed that conversation in her head a dozen times before I ever walked into the kitchen. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. This didn't come out of nowhere, I muttered. Because it didn't. And once that thought settled in, Everything else started rearranging itself around it. I started replaying the last few weeks. Little things. Small details I didn't think mattered at the time. Her phone. She used to leave it anywhere. Kitchen counter, couch, bathroom sink. Lately, always with her. Face down, silent mode. And if I walked into the room while she was using it, she'd either lock it immediately or angle the screen away like she was guarding nuclear codes. At the time, I told myself I was overthinking. Everyone gets more private sometimes. Everyone goes through phases. Then there was the way she started dressing differently. More attention to detail, more time in front of the mirror. And not for dates, not for events, just random evenings. Trying something new, she said once. Of course you are. Then the conversations, or lack of them. She stopped asking how my day was, stopped caring about the answers. Everything became surface level, functional, like we were roommates with shared bills and a polite agreement not to get too involved. And then, the comments. Those little harmless-looking sentences that stick with you later. I don't know if this is enough for me anymore. I feel like I'm missing something. I need more. More what? She never clarified, and I never pushed, because pushing would have made me defensive. And apparently that's worse than slowly watching your marriage turn into a customer satisfaction survey. I sat up, grabbed my phone again, and unlocked it. Still nothing from her. No, are you okay? No, did you get there safe? No, this feels weird? Nothing. That bothered me more than anything else. Because if you ask your husband to leave for 7 days, and then you don't check on him even once, you're not confused. You're comfortable. Too comfortable. I opened social media, didn't expect to find anything, didn't want to find anything, but my thumb kept moving anyway. Her profile. Nothing new. Of course not. She's not stupid. Then I checked her friends. One of them, Lisa, had posted a story. I almost skipped it. Almost. Then I tapped it. It was a short clip. Restaurant, dim lighting, background music, glasses clinking, normal stuff. Except, there were 3 glasses on the table, and one of them was clearly not hers. And in the reflection behind the glass, just for a second, I saw a shoulder, a man's shoulder, and her, leaning slightly closer than you do with just friends. The clip ended. I stared at the screen, replayed it, again and again. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was nothing. No, it wasn't nothing, because Lisa deleted the story less than a minute later. And that told me everything I needed to know. I let out a slow breath and leaned back. Interesting, I said quietly. So, she needed space. But not from people, just from me. And then another thought hit me. Not emotional this time, not angry, just cold. If this was really about clarity, why did it look like she already had company? I grabbed my keys, sat there for a second, then shook my head. No, I said out loud. Not yet. Because driving over there right now, that's exactly what she would expect. Emotional reaction, impulsive move, proof that I couldn't handle space. No, if this was a game, I wasn't going to be the guy reacting. I was going to be the guy watching. And for the first time since I walked out of that house, I wasn't confused anymore. I was curious. And that's a much more dangerous place to be. I didn't go that night. Not because I didn't want to. Because I did. Badly. There's a very specific kind of urge that hits you in situations like that. Not rage, not panic. Something in between. Like your brain is screaming, go see it, confirm it, end the guessing. But I didn't. Because another voice, quieter but smarter, said, if you go now, you're walking into their version of the story. And I was done playing background character. So instead, I waited. The next day, I kept things simple. Work, errands, anything that kept my body moving while my brain did its thing in the background. And it was doing a lot. Replaying, connecting, rebuilding the timeline I had apparently been too comfortable to question. By the afternoon, I checked again. Lisa's profile. Nothing, of course. But someone else had posted. Another friend. Emma. Short story. Same restaurant, different angle. This time no reflections, no accidents. Just a clean shot of the table. 3 people. My wife, Emma, and him. Not a guess. Not a maybe. Him. Mid-30s. Clean. Confident posture. The kind of guy who doesn't look around to see if he belongs somewhere. He already knows. My wife was smiling. Not polite smiling. Not social smiling. Relaxed. Comfortable. Leaning in slightly when she talked. Listening in a way she hadn't listened to me in, I don't even remember how long. And the worst part? There was no tension in her. No hesitation. No sign of someone figuring things out. She looked like someone enjoying a night she had been looking forward to. The clip ended. I locked my phone and just sat there for a second. No explosion. No dramatic reaction. Just a very clean, very quiet realization sliding into place. This isn't space, I said. This is scheduling. I stood up, grabbed my keys again. This time I didn't hesitate, because now I wasn't going there to react. I was going there to confirm. The drive felt shorter than it should have. Or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. My mind was clear. Too clear. That kind of clarity you get when your brain finally gives up on denial. I pulled up a street away from the house and parked. Didn't rush. Didn't slam the door. Just sat there for a second, looking at the lights. Our house still looked the same. Warm light in the living room, bedroom light on, nothing dramatic, no chaos, no signs of anything wrong, which somehow made it worse, because everything looked normal, and I already knew it wasn't. I stepped out of the car and walked slowly. The driveway was occupied. Not my car. Sleek. Clean. Expensive enough to tell you the owner cares about impressions. I walked past it, glanced at the plate, didn't recognize it. Good. That made things simpler. I stopped a few steps from the window, not close enough to be obvious, close enough to see, and there it was. Her. Sitting on the couch, legs tucked under her, relaxed, glass in her hand, laughing, actually laughing. Not that polite, half-forced version I'd been getting lately. Real laughter. Across from her, him. Same guy from the story. Leaning back like he'd been there before. Comfortable. No awkward distance. No first-time energy. This wasn't new, or at least it didn't feel new. They weren't sitting across a table figuring each other out. I stood there, watching for a few seconds longer than I probably should have. Not because I needed more proof, because I needed to feel it fully, that exact moment. So there would be no room left later for doubt, for second-guessing, for maybe I misunderstood. No, I understood perfectly. She leaned forward, said something. He smiled, reached out slightly, not dramatic, not a movie scene, just easy, natural, like they had already crossed whatever line people pretend exists. And that's when it clicked, completely, cleanly, no emotion attached. This wasn't a test, I said quietly. This was a trial run. 7 days, no contact, no interruptions, no accountability. Just enough time to see if the upgrade works. And if not, well, the old version is still waiting patiently in a rented room, proving how understanding he is. I let out a short breath and stepped back. That was enough. I didn't need to see more. Didn't need confrontation. Didn't need explanations. Because the truth wasn't in what they were doing. It was in how comfortable it already was. I walked back to the car, got in, closed the door quietly, and just sat there. Hands on the wheel again. Same position as before. Different person. Because something had shifted, completely. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't hoping anymore. And I definitely wasn't waiting anymore. I pulled out my phone one more time, opened her contact, looked at it, then locked the screen and set it aside. No, I said. You don't get that version of me anymore. I started the engine. pulled away from the street. And as the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, one thought stayed perfectly clear. She didn't ask for space. She asked for permission. And I gave it to her. Not anymore. I didn't go back to the rental right away. I drove. No destination, no music. Just the road and a brain that had finally stopped lying to itself. Funny thing about clarity. It doesn't scream. It doesn't explode. It settles. Like dust after something collapses. By the time I parked, I wasn't angry. I was organized. And that's a very different kind of problem. I went inside, dropped the keys on the table, and sat down with my phone. Not to text her. That chapter was closed. No, now I wanted the timeline. Because what I saw wasn't something that started yesterday. That kind of comfort, that kind of ease, that's not a first date. That's a continuation. I opened her profile again, then her friends, then their friends. Slowly, piece by piece, I started building something, just pattern recognition. Lisa again. This time I scrolled back a few days. Another story, different place, bar, group of people. And there he was, in the background, standing close enough to her that it didn't look like coincidence. I paused the frame, zoomed in. Yeah, same guy, same posture, same quiet confidence. Interesting. I kept going. Emma, dinner 2 nights before the test. Different angle. Same group, same guy. Closer this time. Not touching, but not distant either. That gray zone people love to hide in. Nothing happened? Sure, nothing that started yesterday. I leaned back in the chair and let out a small laugh. 7 days, I said to myself. Of course. Not random, not emotional, not spontaneous, scheduled. Because if you're going to remove your husband from the equation, you need a window. A clean one. No interruptions. No accountability. Just enough time to see if the other option feels better. And if it doesn't? Well, you come back with a speech about clarity and growth, and your safe option is still there, waiting like an idiot. I stared at the screen, and for a second I almost admired it. Almost. It was efficient. Cold, but efficient. Then another detail clicked. The calm. That unnatural calm. Of course she was calm, because she wasn't risking anything. She wasn't stepping into uncertainty. She was stepping into something already in motion. I stood up, grabbed a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. This was never a test, I said quietly. This was a comparison. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why she had been distant. Why conversations felt like interviews. Why every little thing I did seemed to fall short. She wasn't unhappy in general. She was evaluating me against someone else. And I didn't even know I was in the running. I took a sip and shook my head. Unbelievable. Not the cheating. People cheat. That's old news. The structure. That's what got me. The packaging. Wrap it in self-discovery. Call it space. Set some rules. And suddenly it's not betrayal. It's growth. Brilliant. I walked back to the table and sat down again. Opened notes. Day 3, dinner, him present. Day 2, bar, him present. Day 0, I need space. Day 1, restaurant, him present, comfortable. I stared at the list, then added one more line. Day 7, verdict. I smiled. Yeah, I said. We'll see about that. Because here's the thing. Up until now, I had been reacting. Confused, trying to understand, trying to keep up. Not anymore. Now I knew exactly what this was. And more importantly, I knew exactly what it wasn't. It wasn't a marriage problem. It wasn't a communication issue. It wasn't a phase. It was a decision she had already made, just dressed up as a process, so she wouldn't feel like the bad guy. And that changed everything. I picked up my phone again. Not her contact. A lawyer. I had never called one before. Didn't even know if I would. But suddenly, it didn't feel extreme. It felt appropriate. The call was short. Simple questions. General information. Nothing dramatic. But enough to understand the basics. Enough to realize I had options. Not emotional reactions. Decisions. I hung up and sat there for a moment. I'm not waiting 7 days, I said. Not like this. Because waiting implies uncertainty. And there was nothing uncertain about what I saw. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. Not to go back to the house. Not yet. There were a few more things I wanted, not evidence, clarity, for myself. So that when the moment came, I wouldn't hesitate, I wouldn't question, and most importantly, I wouldn't give her the chance to rewrite the story, because I already knew how that version would sound. I was confused. I needed time. You're overreacting. No, not this time. This time I had the timeline. And what mine showed was simple. She didn't test my value. She tested her options. And that test was about to end very differently than she expected. The next few days were quiet. I didn't text her, didn't call, didn't check her profile every 5 minutes like some desperate intern waiting for feedback. If she wanted silence, she got it. Full premium package. Meanwhile, I handled my side. Work, routine, a couple of conversations I'd been putting off for years. I met with the lawyer again. In person this time. Calm office, neutral tone, no drama. We talked through everything, assets, accounts, logistics. No emotional commentary, no, are you sure, speeches, just facts. Which, honestly, was refreshing. By the end of it, I had everything I needed. Papers ready, not signed yet, but ready. I put them in a folder and left it on the table in the rental. Day 5 passed, then day 6. Still nothing from her, not a single message. Not even a, "How are you holding up?" That alone told me more than anything I'd seen through a window. Because when you ask someone to leave their home for a week and you don't check on them even once you're not conflicted, you're comfortable. On the evening of day 6, my phone finally lit up. Her name. I looked at it for a second, then answered. "Hey," I said. Neutral. Clean. No emotion. "Hey," she replied. "I think we should talk tomorrow," she said. "Of course you do." "I was thinking the same thing," I said. A small pause, like she didn't expect that answer. "Good," she said. "Come by in the afternoon." Not, "Can we meet?" Not, "Are you okay?" "Come by." Back to scheduled programming. "Sure," I said. "What time?" 3. "Works for me." Another pause, like she was waiting for something else. Maybe questions, maybe tension, maybe a hint that I'd been sitting in a dark room, emotionally spiraling for 6 days straight. "Sorry to disappoint." "Okay," she said. "See you tomorrow." "Yeah," I replied. "See you." She hung up. I stared at the phone for a second, then set it down. No racing thoughts, no adrenaline spike, just one clear realization. She thought she was about to deliver a decision, and she thought I was still waiting for it. I leaned back in the chair and let out a quiet breath. "Yeah," I said to myself, "this is going to be interesting." The next day, I didn't rush. No dramatic preparation, no rehearsed speeches in the mirror. I woke up, got dressed like it was any normal day, grabbed the folder, and left. The drive felt different this time. Not heavy, not tense, controlled. Like I was walking into a meeting I already knew the outcome of. When I pulled up to the house, her car was there. I parked, grabbed the folder, and stepped out. For a second, I just stood there, looking at the place, the same house, the same door, the same everything. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. And strangely, that didn't bother me. I walked up and knocked. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. She opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been waiting right behind it. She looked good, put together, calm, composed. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I replied. We stood there for a second, just looking at each other, trying to read something. She stepped aside. "Come in." I walked past her. Same smell, same furniture, same place where, a few nights ago, she had been laughing with someone else like this whole thing was already over. I set the folder on the table but didn't open it. Not yet. She sat down on the couch. I stayed standing for a second, then took a seat across from her. Distance, deliberate, she noticed. So, she began, folding her hands together. I've had time to think. I almost smiled. She continued. I've done a lot of reflecting. About us. About what I need. About where I see my life going. Professional tone, structured sentences, very on brand. I leaned back slightly. Sounds productive, I said. She gave a small nod. It was necessary. Of course it was. She looked at me, studying my face, trying to find something. Emotion, tension, weakness, anything she could work with. Didn't find it. I've made my decision, she said. And there it was. The moment she had been building toward. The verdict. The conclusion. The final line of her carefully designed 7-day process. Then I nodded. Yeah, I said. Me too. That stopped her. Not dramatically. Just enough. What do you mean? She asked. I leaned forward slightly, calm, clear. No, I said. You go first. Let her say it. Because once she did, there was no going back to her version of the story, and I was very interested to hear exactly how she planned to package this. I think we've lost something, she began, and I don't believe it's something that can be fixed the way things are. Clean, vague, non-committal, professional breakup language. I didn't interrupt. She continued, gaining confidence with every sentence. I've been feeling disconnected for a while, and I think we both deserve to be in something that feels right. There it is again. Feels right. The most convenient phrase in the world when you don't want to explain anything. I care about you, she added, softer now. I really do, but I don't think this is the life I want long term. I nodded slowly. Got it, I said. She watched me closely. Waiting. For what? Shock? Begging? A last-minute speech about memories and second chances? Wrong movie. I leaned back slightly, crossed my arms. Anything else? I asked. That threw her off a little. Just a fraction. I thought we could talk about how to move forward respectfully, she said. Respectfully. Now that was rich. Sure, I said. We can do that. She relaxed just a bit, that sense of control sliding back into place, like she had successfully navigated the difficult part, delivered the news, handled it maturely. Now we move into logistics, clean, civil, dignified. I let that sit for a second. Then I leaned forward. Before we do that, I said calmly, I've got a question. She nodded. Okay. I held her gaze. Day 1, I said. That restaurant. Dim lights. 3 glasses. Lisa posted it, then deleted it. A pause. Small. I kept going. Day 2. Same place. Different angle. Emma's story. That one stayed up. Same guy both times, I said. Mid-30s. Confident. Sits like he owns the chair. Her lips parted slightly. Evening, I added. Your living room. His car outside. You on the couch. Laughing. Silence. Heavy now. Not comfortable. Not controlled. I leaned back again. Relaxed. You're right, I said. You did have time to think. She finally spoke. That's not... I raised a hand slightly. Don't, I said. I tilted my head slightly. You didn't need 7 days, I said. You needed a window. She swallowed. That wasn't part of her script. I can explain. She tried again. I shook my head. No, I said. You can rephrase. That's not the same thing. Another silence. This one longer, heavier. You were already seeing him, I said. Before this. She hesitated. I met him recently, she said. Recently, I repeated. Yeah. I nodded. Right before you needed clarity. She didn't answer. I leaned forward slightly. This wasn't a test, I said. This was a comparison. She shook her head quickly. It wasn't like that. I almost smiled. It was exactly like that, I said. She opened her mouth again, then closed it. Because now she understood something very important. I wasn't asking, I was stating. And the best part? I added. You built rules around it? That hit. No contact, no pressure, no questions, I continued. Perfect setup. That's not fair, she said, a little sharper now. Fair? I repeated. You asked your husband to leave his own house so you could try out another guy without feeling guilty. That's not what It is, I cut in. You just gave it better vocabulary. I reached over, pulled the folder closer, and placed it on the table between us. She looked at it, then at me. What's that? She asked quietly. I slid it toward her. Logistics, I said. She didn't touch it. You wanted 7 days to decide if I was worth keeping, I said. Her eyes flicked up to mine. I held her gaze, calm, clear. I needed one night, I continued, to realize you weren't. She stared at me. You're overreacting, she said finally, but there was no confidence in it. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I'm responding. I nodded toward the folder. You didn't test my value, I added. You showed yours. And just like that, the entire game she built collapsed. She didn't open the folder right away, just stared at it. Like if she waited long enough, it might disappear. Or explain itself in a way that worked in her favor. It didn't. I didn't plan it like this, she said quietly. Of course you didn't. Nobody ever does. Things just conveniently fall into place, right? I stood up. No, I said. You just planned everything around it. She looked up at me. For the first time since this started, she didn't look calm, not composed, just uncertain. I picked up my keys. I stopped at the door and looked back at her. You didn't need space, I added. You needed options. She didn't respond, didn't argue, because there wasn't anything left to reshape. I opened the door. And just so we're clear, I said, glancing at her one last time, I wasn't waiting for your decision. Then I stepped outside. I got into the car, started the engine, and didn't look back this time. Because there was nothing there anymore that belonged to me. And honestly, that was the first thing about this whole situation that actually felt right. A few weeks later, everything was simple. The paperwork went through without drama. No long emotional speeches, no last minute, maybe we can fix this. Just signatures, clean, efficient. I moved into a new place, smaller, quieter, but it felt more like mine in a week than that house had in months. Funny how that works. I heard things here and there, mutual friends, casual mentions. Apparently, things with that guy didn't turn into some perfect new life. Shocking. Turns out, when your relationship starts as a comparison, it usually ends the same way. But honestly, that part didn't matter. She didn't lose me because of a mistake. She lost me because she needed to check if something better existed. And in doing that, she became the thing that wasn't worth keeping. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.